us now, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us again tonight. I can imagine if you were watching the leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee today, it must have been a difficult thing to watch, watching the way this is supposed to be done, watching the way this is supposed to be handled, while your chairman is out there saying the Democrats aren't serious, the Democrats don't want to do this job.
Good evening, Lawrence. I did watch that press conference with envy, but also a sense of familiarity. Our chairman and ranking member just weeks ago were working hand in hand. So were all the Republicans and Democrats on the committee. We had a pledge to follow the evidence. We had a productive, open hearing as we went down an investigative road together. Unfortunately, the chairman exited that road to go and work with the White House. And what's at stake now is our committee's independence, credibility, and ability to make progress. And Lawrence, I'll give you one other example, though, that informs me. I was a 20-year-old intern in Washington on Capitol Hill when September 11th happened. I saw Republicans and Democrats after that attack stand hand in hand on the Capitol steps, saying, "God bless America," and then went to work to make the reforms necessary to make sure this never happened again. And that also, I think, should be a model of how we can unite around an attack and protect the American people and our very democracy that we hold so sacred.
And there was a bipartisan commission investigation of 9/11, how that happened, how that found its way, how things found their way through the cracks of intelligence and FBI intelligence collection. And that was done in a completely bipartisan way. We heard something from Bob Kerrey, who was a member of that commission, in the beginning of our show tonight, about your chairman and how disappointed he is in your chairman. What are you hearing, or are you hearing anything from Republicans, including Republicans not on the committee, who are worried about the way this is looking for the Republicans in the House of Representatives?
Yeah, Lawrence, I wrote the legislation with Elijah Cummings to have an independent commission, which we thought was the most comprehensive way to get to the bottom of what happened. And one Republican, Walter Jones, who's also called for Chairman Nunes to step aside from this investigation, he's joined us on the independent commission bill. And a lot of Republicans had told me, I don't think we need a commission because we have a House investigation underway. They're rethinking that now, and so I hope they reconsider it. Leader Nancy Pelosi reminds me often that the September 11 Commission was not created on September 12th, that it actually was over a year later, and that's because people doggedly pursued how we could bring Republicans and Democrats together to have such a commission, and it was the appeals of the families who came to Washington that made it happen. So now we're hoping that it's the appeals of our constituents who care about free and fair elections that also get us to that point.
I want to look at another moment in the press conference today that the senators had, talking about their working relationship with each other.
Is there any circumstance with which you wouldn't share with Mr. Warner one of your sources of intelligence on this investigation?
He usually knows my sources before I do.
And let me assure you, I've also got his cell phone, which means he hears from me more than he sometimes likes.
And Congressman Swalwell, we show these little bits simply because it's such a stark contrast to the way things are working on your committee. And you point out it's the way things were working on your committee 2 weeks ago, as recently as 2 weeks ago. And what do you believe happened to change all that?
I believe that after the open hearing, the dots that we were connecting as far as Donald Trump and his team's personal, political, and financial ties to Russia that were converging with Russia's interference campaign were brought to light. They were validated by FBI directors stating to the world that the president and his campaign were under federal criminal and counterintelligence investigations. And so I believe that the chairman panicked. And the next day, he goes to the White House without telling Democrats, receives classified information, and then goes back there the day after that to brief the president when he was just there the day before. So it looks like he is now working with the White House rather than showing the independence we need him to show. And that's why, Lawrence, this investigation is bigger than one person, and he would do us all a service if he just stepped aside and allowed us to, again, show progress.
What do you think of the point that some people are making today that, look, it's actually the road gets crowded when both committees are doing the same thing? The Senate investigative process and the Intelligence Committee, House investigative process on the same thing at the same time. time, and it may be better for one committee to voluntarily step aside. That wouldn't be what's happening here. It would be one committee falling into chaos while the Senate proceeds. But what do you say to that point, that it may be better to have one concentrated center of this investigation in the Senate committee?
It would be better if we had a joint House and Senate investigation. That would avoid redundancies. I actually think if we had done that, that also would have probably prevented the chairman from going over there, or he would have probably been removed, I think, from a team investigation between the House and Senate. But I'm not going to let this just be a Senate investigation, Lawrence. Democrats on our committee, we're going to continue to follow all leads, receive evidence, and hear from any relevant witnesses. The question right now, though, is will there be an asterisk around our investigation? Or can we go back to being one that's credible, independent, and making progress?
Well, give us a quick answer to that. What are the possibilities for that?
Recusal from the chairman, and then to have that open hearing we were supposed to have yesterday with Sally Yates, John Brennan, and James Clapper. That's a good first step. And then there's relevant witnesses like Carter Page, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, and Paul Manafort, who I think would be logical witnesses to hear from in the public as well.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.